According to Eurostat's data for 2023, China was the EU's third largest trading partner in exports, accounting for 8.8%, and the largest for imports, accounting for 20.5%. This already imbalanced trade relationship further deepened in recent years, with the EU recording a near €400 billion trade deficit in 2022. That same year saw a record import value of €627.3 billion. In the following 2023, the trend of significant growth continued, albeit not at the record level of 2022. However, €514.4 billion of imports is still substantial. In addition, EU exports to China, although much smaller than imports, have seen slightly higher growth in the last 3 years, now ranging between €220 to €230 billion. This sets the stage for our story, the story about logistics sensitive to external factors such as geopolitics, instabilities, crises, etc., but also about the transport corridors and complex trade networks between China and Europe, with a special emphasis of the role of railways in that story. First things first, the modal distribution of this immense trade network is such that maritime transport not only continues to dominate with around 90% share, but also reaches historical figures, especially in flows from China to Europe. Incidents such as the 2021 Suez Canal blockage, ongoing political instability in the canal region, rerouting ships due to risks of attacks on commercial vessels by groups such as Houthi rebels, and similar issues have not significantly impacted this trend. According to available data, in June 2024 alone, over 800,000 containers arrived in northern European ports from China, representing an absolute record for a single month. Companies like Maersk and MSC even had to reduce the number of so-called port calls to avoid congestion. This aligns with data on the record import values from China during 2022 and 2023. However, the situation with rail transport is a little more complex. Sources close to Chinese interests, such as China Railway Container Transport, indicate that the number of trains between China and Europe nearly doubled from 2019 to 2023. Similar sources tend to report that in 2023 alone, 1.9 million containers were transported on the China-Europe-China route, with around 1,400 trains running in both directions each month. However, we must question the reliability of these figures. Some other more credible sources suggest that the total amount of containers was 681,000 in 2022 and 674,000 in 2023. Previously, in 2021, 693,000 containers were transported. Seemingly, growth continues and everything looks fine. However, what is hidden from these numbers is the fact that they include traffic with Russia and Belarus, i.e., goods destined for their markets. If we consider only the goods exclusively exchanged between China and the EU by rail, we then see that only 211,110 containers were transported in 2023, indicating a significant drop of 48.5% compared to 2022, when 410,600 containers were transported. This represents only a third of 2021 throughput, when there was a total of 618,180 containers. Overall growth attributed to Russia and Belarus is related to a change in politics and an economic shift of these two towards China, all in the light of seeking alternative solutions for resources and products and alleviating sanctions. If we look at the EU destination countries, Eastern Poland's terminal Malashevich still receives most of goods, handling about 118,000 containers. This represents a 34% decline compared to 2022. On the China-Germany route, the decline is even more pronounced, with 80% drop, resulting in only approximately 13,000 containers arriving in Germany in 2023. On the other hand, about 58,000 containers were shipped from Germany to China, but this also represents a nearly 46% decline. Besides the decline in rail traffic due to the war in Ukraine and political relations between the EU and Russia, there has also been a shift in route priorities. Since 2022, attention has shifted from the so-called Northern Corridor through Russia, which has about 90% share, to the Trans-Caspian, known also as Middle Corridor. This corridor connects China and the EU via Kazakhstan, the Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. Compared to the Northern Corridor, it is characterized by less favorable infrastructure, capacity shortages, longer travel times that last about 30 days, numerous border crossings, political instability, and, of course, higher transport costs. However, given the current geopolitical circumstances, this corridor was recognized as potentially more stable. Since 2022, China has been particularly committed to improving infrastructure along this corridor, as evidenced by numerous bilateral agreements with countries like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, significant investments including in ports and terminals, and the fact that the volume of goods transported on this route increased from 784,000 tons to 2.7 million tons in 2023. European institutions and banks such as the EBRD, but also USAID and others from the western side, are not lacking interest in the capacity of this corridor. It can be reasonably concluded that these efforts are made to ensure an efficient alternative to the Russian route in the future. For example, in January 2024, at the Investors' Forum for EU Central Asia Transport Connectivity in Brussels, the EBRD expressed its readiness to invest around 1.5 billion euros in Trans-Caspian Corridor over the next 2 to 3 years. Some of the priority projects include the modernization of container handling equipment and the development of a container terminal at the Aktau port, double tracking and the electrification of the national railway network of Kazakhstan, rail and road projects in the Kyrgyz Republic, such as the upgrading of railway infrastructure and maintenance of rolling stock for national railway operator. Together with USAID, they signed a Memorandum of Understanding on development of Middle Corridor through Georgia. Despite these efforts, this route still lacks the necessary capacity. Although the northern route remains dominant for China-EU transport in the short term, the Middle Corridor should not be overlooked. As per 2024, available data for 2024 indicates that the volume of rail imports from China to the EU is returning to levels close to 2021. In the first half of 2024, approximately 189,000 containers were achieved, which is close to the 2021 levels and 66% higher than the same period in 2023. This rebound can be attributed mainly to the diversion of ships from the Red Sea around the Cape of Good Hope. Some estimates suggest this gradual recovery trend continued in the later months of 2024, with the year expected to close with around 400,000 containers. Besides Malashevice, routes with the highest current transport volumes are those to Duisburg in Germany, with significant routes also to Budapest in Hungary and Liège in Belgium. What is quite interesting, on December 3, 2024, the 100,000 freight train from China arrived in Duisburg. Before concluding, it is important to understand that this traffic is asymmetrical, with the number of trains from the EU to China at its lowest level in recent years. According to some, this indicates a permanent shift of European shippers towards alternative transportation methods for their goods and containers traveling to China. Moreover, at the moment, due to lower cargo volumes, rail transit times are better than ever, averaging just under 10 days. There are no sanctions in place to hinder the rail transit of goods through Russia, although some companies have reported delays and additional inspections. However, this does not seem to be a widespread practice. A similar situation also occurred with the Polish authorities temporarily blocking Malaszewice, only to put some pressure on Belarus and show what could happen. To justify the higher transport cost, which can be in range of 1.5 to 2 times higher than maritime transport, trains typically transport higher market value goods, such as electronics, machinery and equipment, vehicles, textiles, etc. In 2023, 18% of the total volume between China and EU was electronics, 14% communication equipment, 12% machinery and electromechanical equipment, and 8% each for automotive and plastic products. This structure is similar to the previous years, with the automotive sector being the only one experiencing significant growth. However, shipping costs of maritime transport can be unpredictable, so during crises like the one in the Red Sea, sea transport becomes more expensive, giving rail transport a life-saving advantage. In other words, transport, logistics, and routes between China and Europe indeed are a complex and dynamic interplay of various factors such as geopolitical relations, crises. They depend on container availability, changes in commodity and transport prices, and many other. This impacts the modal distribution of transport from year to year. However, based on the consistent and unstoppable growth observed in the past, with trade relations continuing to grow, it can be safely concluded that rail transport remains upward trajectory despite any crisis. This was Railways Explained. We hope you enjoyed, and if you'd like to support us, consider joining our Patreon community, where you'll get access to exclusive content and behind-the-scenes insights. You can also support us through a one-time donation via PayPal, because every bit helps us continue to bring you well-researched videos on complex railway topics. And don't forget to hit the join button on YouTube to become a channel member. By joining, you'll unlock special perks, including early access to videos and direct interaction with our team. Your support is vital in helping us keep the channel going strong and providing in-depth analysis on important global projects like this one. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.